The garage shutter, which is usually closed, was oddly open. No way. My hand trembled, making the umbrella I was holding quiver. I could feel my heart pounding. As I got close to the car, I realized it clearly. There wasn't just a woman in the car, but a man too. And they were, astonishingly, in the midst of an affair. Oh my, I almost screamed from the shop, but bit my lower lip to endure it. I can't let them know I'm here. I need to get evidence. The man who came out of the car was undoubtedly my husband, Mike. Come on, the car's too cramped. Let's do it outside next time, right? Mike's cheerful voice made my skin crawl. No way someone might see. Close the shutter? Yeah, it's fine. The car will hide us. The remote is too far. Come here, Sarah. You're the best. This is unbearable. I can't stay here. But if I leave now, what about the evidence? Struggling with nausea, I tried to think. That's it. I quickly grabbed clothes from the ground and a remote from the wall and left the garage. You two, so ardently engaged like monkeys, deserve to be left just as you are, with nothing on. Fitting for your behavior. May you two stay there, happily together, forever. I've never worked with a woman before. Are you sure you're up for it? I can't deal with complaints or tears. The words from the client, said without malice, were a joke. I'm Emily Johnson, 34 years old. I've been in sales for over a decade. This is nothing new to me. I've got this. Trust me. I smiled at the client, Mr. Smith, who then casually began to pack up his documents. Although I'm used to it, I still felt uneasy. If anything comes up before our next meeting, feel free to contact me. As I stood up, hiding my inner turmoil, Mr. Smith came over and patted my shoulder, then stroked my back. Sure, I'll call you. He looks down on me because I'm a woman, yet acts with ulterior motives because I'm a woman. As I tried to distance myself from his hand, another man's voice rang out. Hey Smith, what are you doing? That's too familiar. Startled, Mr. Smith stepped back. Wilson, this isn't what it looks like. Ignoring Mr. Smith's excuse, the man apologized to me. I'm sorry about Smith. I'll have a word with him. Or, if you prefer, I can assign someone else to handle this. The man, likely Mr. Smith's boss, flashed a more polished sales smile. A few months later, I would end up marrying this man. The man's name is Mike Wilson. He's 40 years old, 6 years older than me. At our first meeting, I was impressed by his considerate nature, and afterward, Mike continued to show his smart handling of things. Gradually, we were drawn to each other, and a month ago, we got married. Mike was indeed handsome when we first met. It was surprising that he had never been married until the age of 40. But maybe there's a reason for someone remaining single until that age. Until that age, I sighed as I looked at our new home. Let's go back to before we got married. Mike was a frugal person. I earn a decent amount, but there's no need to waste money. When I asked about the wedding, Mike looked puzzled and said, whether to have a ceremony or not is a personal choice. There are various values, but it's important to choose words carefully when conveying those values. I didn't necessarily want a big wedding, but being treated as an unnecessary expense was unsettling. With mixed feelings, I pressed on with another question. So what about our new home? Shall we go house hunting this weekend? Both Mike and I were living with our parents. Therefore, moving into one of our apartments wasn't an option. We needed to decide on our post-marriage living arrangements. Mike vaguely suggested living together, but I firmly refused. Due to my job, I often come home late at night. I didn't want to inconvenience my in-laws with my different schedule. So renting seemed reasonable. How about looking for a 2-bedroom apartment? To my surprise, Mike objected. An apartment? He looked dissatisfied. Could he still be hoping for us to live together? I mentioned before, living with your parents is difficult. No, it's not that. I've only ever lived in a house, Mike interrupted. I lived alone during college and moved back home when I started working. Mike, on the other hand, commuted from home during college and started working right after, so he never lived alone. Are you worried about the space? For now, we don't have kids, so an apartment should be enough. It's not about the space. I just don't like the idea, you know? Size and age don't matter, but I'd prefer a house. Okay, got it. Let's look for one. Thus, due to his inexplicable insistence, we moved into this house. Today, our home becomes a 50-year-old rental house. It's older than my parents' house, but is, as desired, a standalone house. I would have preferred something newer, but I couldn't convince frugal Mike. Well, there's a saying, any house becomes a home when you live in it. Yeah, that's true. It's old, but the rent is cheap and it might be sensible for the future. But the rent wasn't the deciding factor. I'm gonna step out for a bit, Mike said, looking restless. He headed to the garage next to the house. The garage, added to the old house, was modern and out of place. It had an electric shutter operated by a remote. Following Mike, I saw him admiring something with fascination. Ah, how beautiful it is. What he was admiring was a super luxury car, delivered just a few days ago. I'm not knowledgeable about cars, so I don't really understand its value, but it's extremely expensive, including all expenses. It costs about $500,000. When I heard that amount, I was so shocked that time seemed to stop. That's enough to buy a house. If that's the case, we should have bought a house as you wanted. No, I don't care about houses. Don't you get it? It's a man's dream, a man's dream. I don't want him to brush off such a huge amount of $500,000 is just a man's dream. If this was from Mike's savings before we got married, I wouldn't say anything. But unbelievably, he bought it on a loan. Moreover, he thought I would oppose it if he consulted me beforehand. So he only told me afterward. Are you sure this is okay? You know, we might need more money in the future. It's okay, it's okay. After all, we're married now. What? Isn't it normal to stop wasteful spending, especially after getting married? Mike, looking at his own reflection in the car's body, didn't even glance at me as he said, after all, from now on, Emily will learn and manage the living expenses, right? Then I can use all my salary for the loan. When I was living at home, my mom managed my salary and I couldn't use it freely. Now I can spend it however I want. I had heard a bit about his mother managing Mike's money. I thought it was just overprotectiveness and didn't pay much attention, but now I see his sense of money is unique. He doesn't spend on living spaces he's not interested in, but spends generously on cars he loves. In a way, it's honest and the right way to spend money. But still, I can't accept being relied upon like this. Are you saying I should support you? That's definitely not possible. We might want kids in the future. No, what are you talking about? I'm already 40 and you're 34, right? It's too late to think about having kids. Don't start having strange expectations now. Just give me the money instead. But you said you wanted kids too, and now it's all about the car. If it happens, we'll raise them. No choice. Oh, and stop saying support, okay? I'm working hard too. Mike makes excuses, but if he pours his salary into the car and I have to cover living expenses, it's like I'm supporting him. When I fell silent, perhaps realizing something was wrong, Mike soothingly stroked my head. Are you jealous of the car? That's cute. Don't worry, I'm all about Emily. I love you so much. If we're talking about people, Emily, you're the best in the world. I knew he was trying to charm me, but his ridiculous words made me laugh, and I couldn't say anything more. This is quite a situation for an Alouette. During a break at work, listening to my venting with a wry smile was Miss Young, the same age as Mike. She's a superwoman appreciated for her work and promoted exceptionally fast. Her empathetic approach to consulting earns her everyone's trust. I thought he was a man of strong preferences, but I never imagined he'd be so self-centered. My ex-husband was the same. Always put himself first, never listened to what I had to say. Exactly. We haven't even unpacked from moving yet, and he's always sneaking off to the garage. Well, I ended up divorcing because he never changed. But Emily, you're still in the honeymoon phase. Things might change, you know? Ms. Young then pulled out a small bag of chocolates and placed it in front of me. Eat something sweet and refresh yourself. You don't have to force yourself to accept your husband, but why not try to understand him better? Of course, joining the divorcee club is always an option too. As I ate the chocolate, I laughed with Ms. Young. Indeed, I never showed interest in cars, never really tried to learn about them. Maybe that attitude came across when Mike talked about cars. Since I might get off work early today, maybe I'll make Mike's favorite Chinese food and wait for him. After finishing shopping at the supermarket, I quickly headed home. Alright, what should I start with? I packed the groceries into the fridge and flipped through a recipe book. Lately, I've been so busy with daily chores that I haven't had the chance to cook anything elaborate. As I was pondering what to cook, I faintly heard a woman's voice from somewhere. I strained my ears towards the open window, and although the voice was intermittent, I could definitely hear something. The houses around here are spaced out, not close together. It's not someone from the neighborhood. The intermittently audible voice made me uneasy, so I grabbed an umbrella and my phone, which were near the entrance just in case, and quietly headed towards the source of the voice. The voice seemed to be coming from the garage. The garage shutter, which is usually closed, was oddly open. Mike doesn't use that super luxury car for commuting. He's afraid of getting it scratched, and apparently, it's also hard to drive. Therefore, the shutter is always closed. Mike should be opening it every day after returning home with the remote control. He even had me install a security camera in the garage for safety. It's strange that such a heavily secured garage is open. What if it's a female thief? If she's after the car, I need to protect it. It's Mike's precious car after all. I gripped the umbrella tightly in my hand. It seems the female thief is already in the car. Is she struggling to start the engine? The car was shaking enough for me to notice from a distance. I prepared my phone to call 911 at any moment and slowly approached the car, crouching low. I hid right beside the window. That's when I finally realized I was making a huge mistake. No way. My hand trembled, making the umbrella quiver. I could feel my heart pounding. As I got close, I clearly understood. There wasn't just a woman in the car, but a man too. And they were, astonishingly, in the midst of an affair. Who could it be? It's obvious. No one would use someone else's car in their garage for such acts. Mike was having an affair? Oh my. I almost screamed, but bit my lower lip to endure it. I can't let them know I'm here. I need to get evidence. I have my phone. I could record a video, but how? My voice is muffled, and it's hard to film inside the car without being noticed. My emotions are a mess, and tears are overflowing without understanding why. I know I need to do something, but I can't move. Suddenly, the car stopped shaking, and the voices stopped. It's hot. Along with the voice, the rear seat door on the opposite side of where I am opened. I was in a state of shock when I saw Mike come out of the room. I couldn't see him, but I recognized his voice. A woman also emerged shortly after. Wait, I'm not even dressed yet, I thought to myself. And Mike, you're only wearing a shirt and no pants? That's crazy. The woman giggled, but I didn't recognize her voice. Mike's cheerful tone made my skin crawl. No way, someone might see us, I said, feeling uneasy. Close the shutter, Mike suggested. It's fine, the car will hide us. But the remote is too far, the woman Sarah chimed in. Come here, Sarah, you're the best, Mike said, using lines I'd heard before. It pained my heart to realize he said them to anyone. Sarah didn't seem to mind, and they started making disturbing noises again. Don't they have any shame? What if someone sees them? I thought, feeling disgusted. I can't take it anymore, I said to myself. I have to leave. But what about the evidence? In a semi-panic, I noticed something in the upper corner of the garage. That's right, I thought. With that, I should be able to get evidence without being seen. With a plan in mind, I calmed down and became more level-headed. They were too absorbed in their actions to notice me as I made my way to the garage exit. That's it, I said to myself. I need to act fast. I quickly grabbed the clothes on the ground and the remote on the wall before leaving the garage. Everything happened in a blur as I packed only the essential belongings into the trunk. I'm not coming back to this house, I thought, determined. 10 minutes later, I arrived at my office, where I could save the evidence. I could use my phone, but a computer feels more secure, I thought. There's a computer at home, but I risk running into them if I go back there. I have my personal computer at the office. I'll just take that and maybe go to a cafe. I hurried to my desk, grabbed my laptop, and was about to head to the door when someone grabbed my shoulder. Hey Emily, are you okay? I turned around to see Ms. Young, my boss, standing there with a concerned look on her face. I meant to say good evening, but I couldn't speak properly, I said, feeling embarrassed. Your face is pale. Are you okay? What happened? Miss Young asked, her eyebrows furrowed. Miss Young, I said, tears welling up in my eyes. Mike, he's cheating on me. I clung to Miss Young like a child, feeling vulnerable and betrayed. Cheating? What? Miss Young's sharp eyes widened in anger. Then she covered my head with her jacket. Miss Young, there are still a few people around. Use this to cover yourself, she said, trying to protect me. Okay, I said, feeling like a suspect on the news. We hurried out of the office and went to Miss Young's place. I feel bad, she must be tired after work, I thought, feeling guilty for imposing on my boss's home. But that feeling vanished instantly as I realized I needed her support. Just a while ago, I had witnessed such a shocking scene. To me, Miss Young was a pillar of strength. Thank you. Miss Young's apartment was just a few minutes' walk from the office. True to her capable nature, her place had a calm and neat atmosphere. So what do you need the laptop for? Is the cheating confirmed, not just a suspicion? Ms. Young asked as she handed me a steaming cup of coffee. Well, actually, I hesitated a bit, then told her everything. Unbelievable. How could he? Ms. Young trembled with anger after hearing it all. So, what are you gonna do now? I can't deal with him anymore, not just as a husband, but even as a person. I'm thinking of moving towards a divorce. It's pretty severe. You should get as much alimony as you can. Do you think you can get evidence? I can refer a lawyer if you need one. Thank you. About that, I need this for... I placed my personal laptop I had brought from the office on the table. After a few minutes of operating it, I turned the screen towards Ms. Young. This, your husband and the other woman? Yes. This is a recording. I never thought that the surveillance camera for the luxury car would come in handy here. It's remotely operable, and the data is stored on the cloud, meaning everything from that time is recorded. From them entering the car to their monkey-like antics. It's all here. This is enough evidence for adultery. I'm relieved. By the way, can you view this in real time? What are those monkeys doing now? Surely, they must be gone by now. Actually, I took out the remote control from my bag and showed it to her. What's that? It's for the electric shutter. I closed it when I left. In a rush of blood to the head, I had closed the shutter after getting ready to leave the house. And as an afterthought, I threw the clothes I picked up in front of the shutter. It was a rash action done impulsively. But one thing is for sure, right now, those two are locked in the garage in a disgraceful state. You go, girl. That's hilarious. Miss Young burst out laughing, slapping her thigh. I don't think they've noticed me yet, so they must be panicking by now. Checking the camera, it seems they noticed just before the shutter completely closed, but they couldn't escape in time. The camera showed the two arguing miserably. Seeing this, Miss Young laughed even louder. Her laughter made me smile too. That's when it happened. My phone started ringing. The caller was Mike. I didn't want to answer, but I reflexively pressed the button. There's no avoiding it now. I reluctantly answered the call. Hello? Oh, Emily, are you still at work? He was trying to sound calm, but I could hear a slight tremble in Mike's voice. Yes, I'm with Miss Young. What's up? Oh yeah, the garage shutter seems to have malfunctioned. I'm locked in and I can't find the remote. It wasn't a malfunction. I had impulsively closed it. The remote is right here with me. Well, that's unfortunate. Maybe you should contact a service company. They should be able to open it quickly. No, that's okay. Yeah. It would be a waste of money, you know. Yeah, I'll think of something else. Mike quickly denied it. Of course he would. If the service company comes, they can easily open the shutter, but the two of them inside are probably not in a presentable state. So, coming back home right now is not an option. Sorry, I can't. Hey! Your husband is in trouble here. Just dismissing it like that. Are you even his wife? I don't want to be lectured by someone who's trapped with his mistress. There's no helping it. Oh, why don't I make the call? No, that's not what I meant. Ah, damn it. Mike sounded frustrated. He must be struggling to explain the situation without giving himself away. What's wrong? You're acting strange. I'm gonna hang up now. Wait, Emily. I pretended not to hear and hung up the phone, but it immediately rang again. As I was wondering what to do, Miss Young smiled at me. Your husband must be trying to get you to open it for him. She's probably right. If we ask a service company, their embarrassing state would be exposed. But if I call an M there, they could hide in the car, avoiding any shameful exposure. Their affair would also be somewhat concealed. The phone calls are persistent. Here's an idea, Emily. Why don't you go on an overseas business trip? What? Miss Young began to explain smoothly. It seemed sudden, but she had apparently been considering assigning this work to me for a while. The trip itself was planned for about a week, but it might be extended. She was going to go herself, thinking it would be too much to ask of a newlywed. But if you're getting a divorce, it's perfect. Just tell your husband you have to go on a business trip. But with my current state of mind, working is exactly what I need. You'll feel surprisingly refreshed if you focus on work instead of dwelling on your thoughts. Plus, your husband will keep calling until you come home. You don't want to see him right now, do you? Indeed, just the thought of being in the same space as Mike is repulsive to me now, and I'm getting fed up with the constant ringing of my phone. Really? I feel like I'm mixing personal issues with work. Don't worry about it. It's the other way around. I'm just taking advantage of your personal situation. Despite my hesitation, Miss Young insisted, and I ended up going on an overseas business trip. I sent Mike a message through our messaging app. I have an urgent business trip and won't be back for a week. It's overseas, so I'll be limiting my communication. And then I left for the trip. Although I went abroad with some apprehension, Ms. Young's briefing and materials were perfect, and the work went smoothly as I had been involved with the project previously. It seemed I was well received at the destination, and I had a fulfilling private life there, making the week fly by. I stayed in daily contact with Ms. Young, exchanging various information. I remembered that before getting married, one of my goals was to live and work abroad, although it was only for a limited time. It felt like my dream had come true. Once everything with Mike was settled, I decided to return. When I got back to the US, I immediately took action. I had no intention of returning to that house. Before the trip, Ms. Young and I had identified a property, and I moved there straight from the airport. I ignored all of Mike's messages during this time. I decided it was better to wait until I was fully prepared. About a week after moving into my new apartment, I received a call from an unknown number. Maybe it was a work contact I forgot to save. I casually answered the phone. "Hello, Emily?" Finally, you answered. The relieved voice on the other end was still barely my husband, Mike. "Mike, why? Why aren't you answering? Going silent for so long, are you cheating? Was the business trip a lie?" I thought to myself, what is he talking about? That's his story. How much I suffered because of those two. I was about to retort, but I managed to hold back. "Anyway, come back home. There's something important to talk about." I listened in silence as Mike abruptly hung up. The time for the final showdown had come. I took a deep breath and visited that detestable house for the first time in weeks. "You finally came back." As I stood at the entrance, the door opened, and there was Mike, arms crossed, standing upright. "I didn't come back to stay, I came to talk. You said there was something important. I have something I want to say too." "Come in then." Mike gestured with his chin for me to come in, then strode ahead into the house. Following behind, I walked into the living room, and immediately a person caught my eye. Oh, no mistake about it. There on the sofa sat Sarah. She waved her hand at me when our eyes met. Glaring at Mike, I turned my gaze away from him as he spoke. "She's a colleague from work. She's been helping out a lot while you were gone." "Just a colleague coming over to the house?" "Enough. You don't have the right to question me." Mike sighed heavily and slammed a paper onto the table. I stared at it intently. "Do you know what this is?" "It's a divorce paper. A selfish wife who doesn't care about her family doesn't suit me." Mike yelled, trying to look decisive. I chuckled slightly and reached into my bag. Coincidentally, we were thinking the same thing. I mimicked Mike from earlier and slapped my own already filled out divorce papers onto the table. "Why? Why?" I asked. "Because I wanted a divorce." "You too, right?" "That's true, but..." He must have thought I would cry and cling to him, but instead, he looked shocked. "Shall we proceed?" "About the alimony." Mike looked up, startled. "Yeah, that's important. We need to discuss that thoroughly. I don't know the going rates, so I asked a lawyer. He said about $40,000 would be fair." "That much? Is that okay?" Mike's face lit up. Sarah also looked delighted. $40,000 each to Sarah and you. So that's $80,000 in total. "We did it, Sarah." I watched them hold hands and jump around, Then I said quietly, puzzled, "Why are you so happy? Are you glad to be paying alimony?" They stopped and stared at me with wide eyes. With wide eyes, you misunderstood, right? You're saying we're the ones paying alimony. Of course, why would I pay it? I smiled, and Mike's face turned red as he shouted, "It's your fault because you selfishly left the house." I started thinking about divorce, and yet, why should we? Why? Don't you have any idea? I glared at them, and both Mike and Sarah visibly panicked. Well, maybe I was too busy to pay attention to you. Such a shameless response. Sure, maybe I was too busy to pay attention to you. Such a shameless response. Sure, you must have been busy, meeting each other every week for secret dates. Secret dates? We never did that. His voice cracked with too much agitation. Always meeting on weekdays, even in our own house. How thrifty of you. Even high schoolers spend a bit more. You were even buying lunch from convenience stores. Why not spend a little more on her? Mike turned beet red, his mouth opening and closing without words. He wanted to retort, but he couldn't. I was saving for our future with Sarah. I like being frugal. That was his best response. I've wanted to say this for a while, but being frugal and being cheap are different. Your frugality isn't saving. It's just being a nuisance to others. What did you say? Mike started to raise his arm in anger, but stopped when he saw the person who appeared behind me. Who's that? It was Miss Young, who had come to back me up. There's a reason I asked Miss Young to come. You know her, right, Sarah? Sarah, pale-faced, looked at Miss Young. Sarah quickly prostrated herself before Miss Young. Please don't tell my mom. Your mom? Mike looked at Sarah dumbfounded. I answered for the silent Sarah. Sarah is still a college student. She lives near Miss Young. Yes, initially Miss Young hadn't recognized her from the camera footage. But Miss Young and Sarah actually knew each other. Sarah's family was well known in the neighborhood for being very strict. Becoming involved with a married man was absolutely unthinkable. They even forbade her from dating. A college student? No way. She told me she was a working adult. What? Didn't you just say she was your colleague? What's going on? Mike looked around nervously, not answering. I'm sorry. Even if I don't say anything, a lawyer will contact you. You can't afford to pay alimony yet, right? So someone else will have to. Sarah remained bowed, trembling. Stop it, please. I was grounded for just dating a classmate. If they find out I was with a married man, I might never be allowed out again. Why did she choose Mike, knowing the risk? Watching them, I felt disgusted. Then Mike weakly knelt beside Sarah. Wait, Sarah's unemployed. Stop saying it like that. I'm a college student. That's unemployed. Damn it. How could you do this to me? I need a working wife. The loans. What? What are you saying, you deadbeat? Don't rely on someone else to pay your debts. Don't rely on someone else's income. Mike on the verge of a breakdown, and Sarah infuriated. Ms. Young muttered, birds of a feather, a perfect match. It was pointless to watch them argue. Ms. Young and I exchanged looks and were about to leave the room. Then Mike, frantic, grabbed my arm. Wait for me. I was deceived. I haven't been cheating. Emily, you're the best. Believe me. Is that all he can say, this man? I stared intently at Mike. His face was a mess with tears, his eyes bloodshot, and all he could utter were words of self-preservation. And most of those words were lies. I'm so glad I didn't end up spending my life with him. Here, take this back. Eh? Why do you have that remote? Weren't the service guys surprised? You should learn from this and stop using the garage for, I saw everything. Eh? And don't use such an expensive car as a hotel substitute. Cars are meant to be driven. If you're gonna get in, sit in the driver's seat. Don't get it mixed up. Finally understanding, Mike's face drained of color, and he slumped down to the floor. As Miss Young laughed and patted me on the back, I left the house. Afterward, the divorce went through without a hitch. Sarah's parents paid the alimony, which was a relief. Sarah herself was called back home and can hardly go out now. After this incident, she's been stripped of her makeup, not allowed to dye her hair, and has been forced to study every day. Miss Young told me she might soon be married off to someone her parents choose. It might be old-fashioned, but maybe that's for the best for Sarah. As for Mike, after the divorce, news of his affair with a college student spread rapidly at work. He himself claimed to be a devoted husband at work, so the backlash from this incident was tremendous. Moreover, the person he was involved with was a college student. His credibility at work and with clients plummeted. Now he's ostracized both inside and outside of work. Mike continues to work, mainly to pay off the loan for his luxury car. However, considering his situation, it's widely rumored that it's only a matter of time before he's fired, as he's seen as a liability to the company. I hear about their endings, but honestly, I'm not very interested. I have my own life to focus on. A year after the divorce, I quit my job. Now I'm working abroad, fulfilling my dream, in a dreamlike place, with a dreamlike person. Hey Emily, why are you grinning? Oh, nothing. Just thinking about how to surpass Miss Young. How can I do that? Recently, Miss Young started her own business and asked me to join her abroad. I hadn't expected it to be overseas, but I immediately said yes. My dream has come true, but now I have a new one. To become like Miss Young, to surpass her one day, and to repay all the kindness she's shown me. Miss Young has given me so much, both in my personal and professional life. I don't know when I'll achieve this dream, but I'm determined to make it happen. Good luck with that in your lifetime, Miss Young says with a knowing smile, and I vow to myself to make it true. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well, so I need to leave early. I told my boss and got permission to leave early. In truth, while I was feeling a bit under the weather, the real reason I needed to leave early was something else entirely. As I entered my house, I heard some noises coming from the back room. Trying not to make any noise, I walked towards the back room and stopped in front of the door. Then I heard indecent voices of a man and a woman coming from inside. Quietly, I opened the door and peeked inside. There were Mike and Emily, looking lovingly at each other. I really messed up marrying such an unattractive woman. Young and pretty is definitely better. I'm so happy. Let me make you feel even better? I involuntarily closed my eyes. Even though our marriage was on the rocks, I still wanted to believe. But now, faced with this reality, I can't run away. There's only one thing left to do. To bring down the two who have caused me so much pain. My name is Ashley Johnson. I'm a 30-year-old housewife working part-time at a major company. My husband is Mike, 2 years my senior, working in local real estate. Our meeting was 2 years ago at a party hosted by a friend. It was a gathering of about 10 people, evenly split between men and women. There was one man who seemed to be orchestrating everything around. That was Mike. He was brimming with confidence, always smiling, and made sure the conversation never died, entertaining everyone. I guess people like him are really good at their job. The first day I met him, that moment, I was drawn to Mike. But what about Mike himself? All the girls there were younger, cuter, and more fashionable than me. There's no way he would be interested in someone as plain and quiet as me. Watching everyone getting along, I thought I shouldn't have come. That's when it happened. Let's have a drink together, Mike said as he approached me. I was so happy, I couldn't help but smile. Then Mike said, "You have a beautiful smile." Thanks to that one line, I felt instantly closer to him. We exchanged contact details and later went on our first date. From there, our relationship developed further, and 3 months after we met, we started dating. And a year later, Mike proposed, saying, "I'll definitely make you happy. Let's get married." I replied, "I look forward to it." 6 months later, surrounded by well wishes, we became husband and wife. But married life wasn't as sweet as I thought. Being a working couple was harder than I expected, far from the ideal I had in mind at the beginning of our marriage. That made me face the harsh reality. Mike was busy with work, usually getting home around 9 p.m. At first, we used to eat together even if he came home late, but then he stopped having dinner at home, saying he was eating out with colleagues. And gradually we stopped having meals together. 3 months into the marriage, our conversations dwindled and we began to drift apart. One day, returning from my part-time job, I saw Mike's shoes at the entrance. Huh? He's back already? Mike wasn't in the living room, but I found him asleep in the bedroom. "Mike? What's up? Are you feeling ill?" He slowly sat up and said he'd been thinking about something. "It's great we bought a condo after getting married, but I'm not okay with paying more of the mortgage." I couldn't believe what he was saying. I was paying a significant amount too. Don't compare us, Mike. I'm contributing too, you know that, right? Mike paused then said, "It's not enough. You should contribute more." "How can you say that? 80% of my part-time income goes to the mortgage. What more do you expect?" "That's where I have an idea," Mike said. He then suggested something utterly selfish. "Increase your part-time hours." "What? Work more hours, earn more." "You said you wanted to work more, right? Being cooped up at home all day is depressing. More hours, less discontent. Plus it'll help us pay off the mortgage faster." "Wait a minute. Sure, more hours might ease things, but my body can't handle it." I was already overwhelmed with household chores, let alone increasing my work hours. But Mike just insisted it would be fine. So I suggested he help with the chores. "What? Are you kidding me? I work from dawn till late at night. And now you want me to do chores too? I'm not asking for everything. Just help with things like taking out the trash or cleaning the bathroom." Hearing this, Mike's expression hardened and he lashed out. "Don't get carried away because I'm being lenient. Why should the man of the house do chores? That's a housewife's job, something you should be doing anyway. And no way, your increased work hours will make a big dent in the mortgage. What can someone earning peanuts say? Talk about that after you earn like I do. You just need to listen to what I say. Got it?" I was so shocked by Mike's words, showing he only thought of himself, that I couldn't even argue back. I just listened. After that day, my relationship with Mike deteriorated even further. Every day, he pressured me to work longer. I was forced to work longer hours. If I refused, I would face his terrible verbal abuse. Out of fear, I told my boss I wanted to increase my work hours, but I was told it couldn't happen until the next month's contract. Mike's pressure continued during that time. Finally, a month later, I managed to get my working hours increased. But that was the beginning of 6 months of hell. With more work hours, I had less time for housework. I started work at 7 a.m. and finished at 5 p.m. After shopping, I would get home around 6 p.m. and start on the household chores. Before I knew it, it was time for Mike to return home. And he still came home late, never helping with the housework. I ended up being overwhelmed by both work and house chores every day. My body and mind were increasingly exhausted, worsened by Mike's verbal abuse. "You can't even get the bath ready? You're a failure as a housewife. This is definitely grounds for divorce," he would say. On another day, he would comment, "You've aged recently. Going straight to becoming an old lady because I don't pay attention to you. Please, don't make me your caregiver." He was like a different person with his words and actions. I didn't even want to see or hear Mike anymore. Then one day, Mike brought home a woman. "This is my cousin Emily." "Nice to meet you, I'm Emily, his cousin," she introduced herself. They claimed to be relatives, but I had no memory of her. "Really a relative?" I questioned Mike skeptically, but he insisted she was a relative. That didn't make sense. I had met all his relatives at our wedding and introduced myself, but I had never met Emily. "Were you at her wedding?" Mike quickly denied it, saying she was too busy to come. "And since Emily is a distant relative, it's not strange that you don't know her," he added. I couldn't believe him. As I looked doubtful, Mike told me to get Emily a drink. Sighing, I went to the kitchen to make coffee, and Emily followed me. "Ashley, are you a full-time housewife?" she asked. "No, why?" I replied. "You look a bit aged. But now I understand why. Balancing a job and housework, you have no time to pamper yourself," she commented. I was irritated by Emily's words, but restrained myself. Then Mike joined us, agreeing with Emily. "Emily's got a point. You've been neglecting your makeup because you're busy. It's like you've given up on being a woman. And you can't even do housework properly. Remember when you didn't even get the bath ready when I was tired? Terrible, right?" he said, laughing and pointing at me. After that, they kept making snide remarks at me for 3 hours until Emily finally left. A week later, I came home from work and saw Mike's shoes and unfamiliar women's shoes at the entrance. "What's this?" Feeling uneasy, I went to the living room. There, I found Mike and Emily drinking wine. "What are you doing?" "Ah, you back? I got home a while ago. Oops, sorry for intruding." They both seemed already tipsy, their actions suspicious. 3 cans of beer and wine? That's a bit much. When I tried to take the half-finished wine, I faintly smelled body wash from Emily. and strangely the same scent from Mike. I recognized that scent. It was the scent of the body wash I use. Why would they both smell the same? Then I noticed something different about Mike. Ah, you're wearing different clothes. I realized the odd feeling I had earlier. Mike was wearing clothes he usually saved for dates. That meant something. At that moment, my suspicions turned into certainty. That night, Emily stayed until 2 a.m. I was at their beck and call the whole time, cooking, running out to buy more drinks, and not even getting a chance to bathe. Hey, wake up. You'll catch a cold. Let's go to bed. I got the drunken Mike up and took him to bed. 3 weeks passed, and Emily was nowhere to be seen. But one thing had changed. My body wash was running out much faster. This intensified my doubts and left me restless. I had been thinking about something all this time. And then the day came. I'm sorry. I feel unwell and need to leave early. I told my boss and got permission to leave early. I wasn't feeling great, but more importantly, I had to leave early today. When I opened the front door and entered, I heard noises from the back room. I quietly approached and stopped in front of the door. Inside, I heard indistinct voices of a man and a woman. I softly opened the door and peeked inside. There were Mike and Emily, looking affectionately at each other. Marrying that ugly woman was a huge mistake. Young and cute is definitely better. I'm so glad. Let me make you feel even better. I had to close my eyes. Even though our marriage was falling apart, I still had a sliver of hope. But now I couldn't run from the reality in front of me. I had to do something to bring down the two who caused me so much pain. I took out my phone from my bag and started recording them. About 10 minutes passed. That's enough. I had enough evidence. Resolved, I burst open the door. Ashley, why are you here? The two were in a state of panic at my sudden appearance. Without a moment's delay, I showed them the phone in my hand. This is the video I just recorded. What? You're joking. Erase that now. There was no way I was going to erase it. This was solid evidence of their affair, and it wasn't something only I should know about. I sent the video to your husband. What? Husband? Emily, you're married! Mike turned pale and confronted Emily, but she seemed not to hear his words and simply uttered, "Huh? Do you understand what I said?" I told you I sent a video of what you two were doing to your husband. Right after I told her I sent the video, Emily, with a furious look, lunged at me. However, she got tangled in the sheets and fell off the bed with a thud. Out. Worried about Emily, Mike asked if she was okay and reached out to help her. What are you doing? Why are you trying to help her? What do you want, Ashley? What's fun about doing such a terrible thing? What did we ever do to you? I was speechless with disbelief. They had no idea what they had done. They were no longer human to me, just animals driven by desire. It's tiring even to put it into words. There's perfect evidence, and you still won't admit to the affair. That's the end of you as a person. I showed them the video I had recorded earlier. Mike shouted, "Stop it. Erase it now. If you want to stop it, try to do it by force. You're a man, aren't you?" Provoked Mike, face red with anger, tried to snatch my phone, but, like Emily, got tangled in the sheets and fell off the bed. Damn, what are you two doing? Do your actions become similar when you keep being intimate with each other? I said, looking down at the two of them sprawled on the floor. Mike glared at me fiercely and Emily looked defeated. Looking at me like that doesn't scare me. But are you okay with this? Fighting with me here? What are you talking about? Clueless. They looked at me, so I showed them the screen of my phone. Oh! The moment Emily saw the phone, she froze, mouth agape. I'm connected right now. If you have something to say, please go ahead. If you have the courage to talk to him, that is. Emily was stunned, and Mike didn't seem to understand what was happening. Mike, you don't understand, do you? Who I'm connected with right now. This person is Emily's husband. Emily had hidden her marriage from Mike and had an affair with him. Mike naively believed her, and ended up in this situation. Not that I have any sympathy for Mike, who was easily manipulated by Emily. Fooled. Mr. Smith, sorry to keep you waiting. I'll be there soon. Thank you. I ended the call, looked at them silently, and smirked. Then, as if coming back to her senses, Emily nervously looked at me. What? Why did you hang up? Is coming now? Who's coming? Your husband is coming here. Right after that, the doorbell rang. He's here. As I was about to go to the front door to greet Mr. Smith, Emily suddenly started to freak out. What? Emily, what's wrong? Mike was shocked by Emily's uncharacteristic behavior. Well, it's no wonder Emily reacted like that, because Emily's husband is here. Then the bedroom door opened and a tall, gentlemanly man entered. What a pathetic sight. The moment Emily saw Mr. Smith, she clutched her head and started uttering nonsense. Oh. Mike was stunned by her disgraceful behavior. However, Mr. Smith unfazed addressed Mike. You must be Mike. My wife seems to have caused you quite some trouble. As this situation has unfolded, I must respond appropriately. As the head of a company, I cannot let this go unaddressed. Mike had been continuing his relationship with Emily without knowing about Mr. Smith's existence until now. When he learned about it at this very moment, I'll tell you about Mr. Smith, what kind of person he is. However, Mike's shocked expression suddenly turned serious, and he looked at us sharply. You talk about being a top executive and appropriate responses, but the real fault lies with you for neglecting Emily. You're making it sound like it's my fault. Besides, you're just some low-life husband lecturing me. What kind of top executive are you? Probably just a third-rate company president. Talk to me when you earn more than I do. Juk, how can he criticize others so selfishly after having an affair? I'm ashamed that I chose such a man as my husband for life. What? Can't say anything because I hit the nail on the head? That's why you got dumped by your cute wife and she ran off with another man. Pathetic. I can't even sympathize with you as a fellow man. I could only sigh in response, and I apologized to Mr. Smith for making him deal with such a man. Mr. Smith with a kind smile said, "It's okay." His kindness highlighted the stark difference between him and Mike. If you really want to know about Mr. Smith, I'll tell you. But it will shatter your pride. Huh? No way that's true. Mike continued with his arrogant attitude. You're really foolish. This man is the president of the company I work for. At that moment, Mike's face turned ashen. Huh? No, that can't be true, because the company you work at is... You get it now, right? The president of the company I work for, that means something. I work at a local food manufacturer, Smith Iron Foods. It's a major company with well over 500 employees. And Mike's company happens to be a subcontractor for it. The president of Smith Iron Foods? But how did you and the president normally, a part-timer like me, wouldn't exchange contact information with the company's president? Well, you guys created that opportunity though. It's unheard of for a mere part-time employee to be in contact with the company's president. But due to a minor incident, I came to know Mr. Smith's contact details. This started 3 weeks ago when I suspected Mike and Emily of having an affair. They were acting like lovers, touching intimately, even hugging. To anyone, it would seem like they were in a relationship. And during a brief moment when I was away, I found evidence in the trash that they had been intimate. Since then, my mind has been filled with thoughts of Mike's betrayal. And as if to add fuel to the fire, I was burdened with the daily tasks of work and household chores. Gradually, I could feel both my body and mind starting to break down. One day, during lunch break in the company cafeteria, Mr. Smith approached me. Miss Johnson, you look quite exhausted. Is the office work too tough? I was surprised. Despite not being a staff member, Mr. Smith, the president, knew me. He said he knew all the employees' names and sat down across from me. Then unexpectedly, he started talking about himself. He married a woman 20 years his junior 3 years ago, and while the marriage started happily, his wife's attitude changed within 6 months. She stopped doing any housework and lived a life of leisure. It's tough for you too, Mr. Smith. But why are you telling me this? I felt you might be going through something similar. Marriage is truly challenging. Unlike your situation, the reason for my marital issues is entirely my fault. I spoiled my wife too much, a classic case of being blinded by love. Mr. Smith looked a bit sad as he said this, but something else caught my attention. What's your wife like, Mr. Smith? Without saying anything, he took out his phone and showed me a photo of his wife. Is this really your wife? I was shocked when I saw the photo. Yes, it is. The woman he pointed out as his wife was Emily, whom Mike had introduced as his cousin. His cousin Emily, right? How do you know my wife's name? I told Mr. Smith everything I knew. I see, Miss Johnson. Thank you for telling me. I'll remember this. As he was about to leave, I stopped him. I also have something I want to talk to you about, I said to Mr. Smith. I told him about how Mike and Emily had been coming to the apartment almost daily and engaging in an affair. How did you know? By the scent. The fragrance of my body wash that wasn't there in the morning. They were always taking a shower before getting together, using my body wash. Indeed, the amount of body wash had been decreasing abnormally. I see, but just knowing that doesn't seem like enough to do anything about it, does it? That's why I wanted to consult with you. That's when I decided on the date to barge into the room. For that reason? You say that, but anyone would wonder if the scent of their body wash was filling the room. If you're going to cheat, you should have been more careful about your surroundings. Mike slumped his shoulders in defeat, and behind him, Emily, who had screamed herself hoarse, was staring blankly at the ceiling. Suddenly, Mike started muttering to himself. Step back a bit. Eh? Right after that, are you kidding me? He came at me with a demonic look. But the next moment, Mike was suspended in the air and then fell to the floor. Ugh, I've been learning Taekwondo, just in case something happened. Never thought it would come in handy here. Mr. Smith then sternly addressed Mike, who was lying on the floor. I will be reporting this matter to the president of your company. Knowing him, he will impose a severe penalty. Be prepared for that. And for me too. This is a divorce paper. I've already filled in my name, so I need you to write yours now. And because you spent all our savings on that woman, there will be no division of assets. As for alimony, you can look forward to a call from my lawyer soon. Following that, both of them faced difficult times. Mr. Smith divorced Emily that day and demanded a substantial alimony. Emily, who had never worked before, now lives in a shabby apartment, working night shifts and allocating 90% of her earnings to pay the alimony. As for Mike, he signed the divorce papers on the spot and filed them immediately, finalizing the divorce. The next day, just as Mr. Smith said, Mike's boss demoted him and transferred him to a rural area. With the high alimony bill and his need to survive, he's been physically exhausting himself with construction work after his day job. Yet he's still barely making ends meet and is now living a mentally tormented life. As for me, after the divorce, I sold the apartment we lived in and moved to a new one. My life, once devoid of freedom, is now filled with it. Since the incident, I've become quite close to Mr. Smith. I'm not ready to seek new relationships just after my divorce, but I hope to meet someone wonderful in the future. Of course, for now, my work and personal life are my top priorities. Living in a high-rise condo is just the best. I definitely made the right call by signing the lease. A high-rise condo? What are you talking about? I'm talking about our new home, obviously. What are you even saying? He said this with a full smile, but I didn't understand. I had never heard such a conversation. Where did the money come from? Yeah, it's the insurance money left by your previous husband. Then someone visited us. There stood my mother-in-law. Why are you here? I'll let myself in. She walked right into the house. I've been waiting for you, Mom. Is it about that matter? Yes, please have a seat. From their conversation, it seemed that my mother-in-law knew about the high-rise condo too. I was the only one left out. Then my husband said something outrageous. We're gonna live in the condo, the three of us. How can you just say that all of a sudden? If you don't like it, we can get a divorce. I don't mind. I was speechless at his selfishness. Then my mother-in-law smirked and mocked me. Don't be so surprised. You'll handle all the household chores, right? Not only had he signed a lease for the condo, but he also planned to treat me like a maid. I had been balancing work and household duties, but I was reaching my limit. I went to the bedroom, took something out of the drawer and showed it to my husband and mother-in-law. What is this? A divorce paper. I've already found a lawyer. It was good that I had prepared it in advance. Both my husband and mother-in-law looked at each other, shocked. Afterwards, I divorced my husband and moved abroad, but my revenge didn't end there. There's more to come. As a result, my husband and his family faced a huge consequence. I am Susan. I turned 40 last month. Now I work at a securities company, I got into investing in college and became deeply involved. That's when I met my first husband. How about we go out for dinner sometime? Sure. Where to? I found a great place recently. Look forward to it. We continued as good friends, and at the time of graduation, he proposed and we got married. My husband was an investor and had a decent fortune, but he never bragged or settled for it. I truly believed those were happy times. Your husband had an accident. Please come to the hospital immediately. It was right after I finished work. I rushed to the hospital, but he was already gone. My mind went blank, and I don't remember much after that. I was 30 years old. For years after losing my husband, I couldn't accept reality, and time just passed by. I inherited his assets, but honestly I didn't care. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. You don't look like it. The person who spoke to me kindly was Dan, my current husband and a coworker at work. Back then, I was grieving the loss of my first husband, feeling a profound sadness but also loneliness. Dan always listened to my complaints and stories without ever seeming annoyed. Looking back, I might have been an easy target during that time. How about we grab a meal sometime? Oh yes, I found a great place, but it's awkward to go alone. I see, being with Dan was comforting. Our relationship continued, and when I was 34, he proposed. I accepted. It wasn't that I had forgotten my first husband, but I did need support. I told my parents, but one person objected. But I've made my decision. I'm worried. Are you sure he's okay? What do you mean? Isn't he just after your money? That's not an issue. We haven't even discussed that. My sister lived abroad, unmarried, enjoying her life alone. I admired her, but I wanted someone by my side. Eventually my sister came around and our married life began. However, there was one concern. My mother-in-law, Susan, said, "You'll be following my instructions from now on." My mother-in-law didn't live with us, but came to our new home and said that. Then she left. Sorry about that. I didn't expect my mom to say something like that. Don't worry about it. Okay. At that time, Dan helped me through it, but she kept visiting, nagging, then leaving. One weekend, my mother-in-law asked, "Didn't you lose your first husband?" Yes, I did. What was he like? I thought it was insensitive to ask, but I answered to avoid future trouble. Well, my first husband was an investor. An investor? He must have made a lot. Not really, as far as I know. Can't be. Dan was there too, and as soon as I mentioned investor, his interest peaked. Peaked. Could you make some coffee? Oh yes. While preparing coffee in the kitchen, I noticed them talking. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but my mother-in-law had a sly smile. I felt a chill. "Susan, is my coffee ready?" "I'll bring it right now." When I returned, their demeanor had changed back to normal. After she left from her usual chit-chat, Dan confronted me at dinner. "Why didn't you tell me?" "About what?" "About your first husband. I just thought it wasn't necessary to discuss." "Does that mean you don't trust me?" "Why would you think that?" "I just didn't think it was important." However, Dan remained irritated. At that moment, I couldn't understand why he was so upset. I will find out why later. From that day, Dan became harsher towards me. "How was work today?" "Oh, I'm not feeling well. I'm gonna take a day off." Right? Dan started taking more days off. Since we work at the same company, colleagues would ask why he was absent, but I just said he was feeling under the weather. However, thinking back to the day before, it was obvious he was faking it. I couldn't stop wondering what he was up to all day at work. And then when I got home, the room was cluttered with stuff everywhere. "Hey, what are you doing?" "Oh, just looking for something, but I can't find it anywhere. Should I help then?" Suddenly Dan raised his voice. "Susan, don't do anything. Don't touch it." I was taken aback by his sudden outburst. "So are you feeling better then?" "Feeling better? Oh yeah, much better. I've been sleeping all day." I realized right away, Dan was faking being sick to look for something. Something he didn't want me to find. This situation repeated several times. And since he couldn't find it, Dan had a new plan. "I'm going to the salon today, so I'll be back late in the afternoon." "Okay? Got it? Take your time." Yeah, he seemed oddly happy. Happy that I was going out. When I came back home, I could hear voices inside. There was someone else with Dan. I hesitantly opened the front door. "I'm home," I heard a panicked voice from inside. "Oh, you're back early." "Yeah, so who's visiting?" "Yeah, it's my mom." "Your mother?" Then my mother-in-law showed her face. "You're back already?" She looked disappointed. I decided to ask her a question. "Did you find what you were looking for?" "What were you looking for?" "Yes, that's why you came today, right?" I thought Dan couldn't find it alone and asked his mother to help. "You know," Dan interrupted. "Mom, you don't need to say anything extra. And Susan, don't ask unnecessary questions." For some reason, I was the one getting scolded. Why do I have to be talked to like this? I haven't done anything wrong, Pope. You don't need to interfere. It's none of your business. That's right, Susan. It's not your concern. My mother-in-law, who had been quiet until then, suddenly became fiery with Dan's words. "Enough already. Can you just go somewhere else?" "This is my house, though." "Dan is right. Just stay outside until we say it's okay." "See? Just like Mom said, go outside." Dan forcefully pushed me out of the house, and they even locked the door and put the chain on. Lost, I decided to consult with my sister. My sister is always reliable in times like these. "Hello? Susan? What's up?" Well, actually, I explained everything to my sister. At first, she listened silently, but even she was outraged by Dan and his mother's behavior. That's not normal at all. But why would they do something like that? While pondering, my sister seemed to have an epiphany. Maybe they're looking for something related to your previous husband's inheritance. Didn't you mention he was an investor? Oh, everything clicked. Their attitude had indeed changed drastically after I mentioned that. Seems like you hit the nail on the head. Yeah. After ending the call, I killed some time before heading back home. The door was unlocked, so I went inside. Dan's mother had apparently left already. "Sorry about earlier." "It's okay. I'm not bothered." "Good." Dan seemed relieved, but inside I was seething with anger. They quieted down for a while, but it was clear they hadn't given up. That's why I acted immediately. I secured the documents I received from my first husband in a safety box. I thought it was secure. Only my sister and a close friend knew about this. This should keep it hidden and safe from them. I also prepared divorce papers, ready to use them if needed. I didn't want to be the one to initiate the divorce, so I was biding my time. Before I knew it, I turned 40. The one place I felt at peace was at work. "Going out today?" "Yeah. Mom wants me to help her with shopping. Have a good time." He went out with his mother. I spent almost every week with his mother. It was obvious that they were planning something behind my back. I was secretly hoping they would slip up. His mother started asking me to come over frequently to help with chores. "Just need some help tidying up," she would say. I would oblige, starting with the storage shed outside. His mother's house was an old family home where she lived alone. Managing it all by herself would be difficult, but it was strange that she had never asked for help before. She must be up to something. I worked hard cleaning the cluttered and dusty shed. It seemed like it hadn't been cleaned for many years, and it was overflowing with dust and garbage. After hours of hard work, I finally finished, only to be asked to clean inside the house next. "Come on, don't just stand there." "There's still a lot to do," she would order from the living room. I could have complained, but I knew it would only make things worse. So I endured, saving it for the right moment. "All done. All right, you can go home now," she said with no appreciation. Her lack of gratitude made me glare at her. "What's with that look?" she asked. "Nothing. If you have a complaint, just say it," I replied. "No, I don't," she said with a sigh. Such an irritating daughter-in-law, I thought to myself. I couldn't keep living like this. I started making excuses to avoid her requests, but she complained to Dan. "Lately, you've been refusing to help Mom." "I can't always go over there. She's your mother-in-law," he would say. "Then you should go." "You're her son," I would reply. Despite his complaints, I didn't pay much attention. It was too exhausting to engage every time. Then, one weekend, Dan returned with an unusual expression. I braced myself for something. "Welcome back. We need to talk." "Sit down," he said. "Talk?" I was in the middle of preparing dinner, I replied, sitting on the sofa. Dan had a smug look on his face. "High-rise condo is the best. Signing the lease was the right decision," he said. "A high-rise condo? What are you talking about?" I asked, confused. It's about our new home, obviously, he replied with a big smile. But I couldn't understand the meaning. I had never heard such a conversation before. Besides, Dan didn't have the money to buy such a thing. Where did the money come from? I asked. Yeah, it's from the insurance money left by your previous husband, he explained. Just then, someone knocked at the door. It was my mother-in-law. Why are you here? I asked. I'm coming in, she said, marching right into the house. I've been waiting, Mom, Dan said. That matters, right? Yeah, please have a seat, I said, trying to maintain a polite tone. From their exchange, it seemed like my mother-in-law also knew about the high-rise condo. I was the only one left out. Then Dan blurted out something outrageous. We're gonna live in the condo, the three of us. How can you just say that all of a sudden? If you don't like it, we can get a divorce. I don't mind. I was speechless at his selfishness. My mother-in-law also started smirking and mocking me. Don't be so surprised. You'll handle all the household chores, right? Not only had he signed a lease for the condo, but he also planned to treat me like a maid. I had been balancing work and household duties, but I was reaching my limit. And you don't think I can afford such a thing, right? Yes, that's right. But it's not me who's paying. You mean me? Exactly. You've been hiding the inheritance from your previous husband from us, haven't you? We couldn't find it, but we realized we didn't need to. That's despicable. Say whatever you want. Dan and his mother had changed their strategy, thinking the inheritance was out of reach. But they were gravely mistaken if they thought I'd comply. I went to the bedroom, took something out of the drawer and showed it to Dan and his mother. What is this? A divorce paper. I've already consulted a lawyer. It was good that I had prepared it in advance. Dan and his mother looked at each other, shocked. They never imagined I would take such a step. If you do this, you'll regret it. Are you sure about this? Yes. I've been waiting for the right moment to divorce. Think it over. Nobody will be happy with this. It's too late now. I've already decided. Then do as you please. Dan, are you serious? Calm down. She won't listen to anything. This was convenient for me. Then, will you sign it right away? It's okay, right? Yeah. I'll sign it. Dan, ignoring his mother's advice, signed his name. Such a foolish man to do this on a whim. Thank you. I'll file this. If you're satisfied, then just leave. I was planning to do that anyway. Goodbye. Wait, Susan. And so I left the house. I booked a hotel and decided to think about what to do next. It had been a long time since I felt so at peace. Then I contacted my sister. I needed advice about what to do next. I need to talk to you about something. You're calling about your husband and mother-in-law, aren't you? You know me so well. So what happened this time? Well, I'm thinking of getting a divorce. I see. My sister wasn't surprised. She probably saw this coming sooner or later. She's always one step ahead. The reason is the worst. Dan signed a lease for a condo without telling me. What? So they found it? No, they couldn't find it, so they resorted to this as a last resort. That's ridiculous. My sister sighed. All that's left is to file for divorce, but I'm not sure what to do next. I have a good idea. What? Tell me. Well, her suggestion was surprising, but it seemed like a viable option. The next day I gave notice of my resignation at work. I enjoyed my job and wanted to continue, but the thought of sharing the same space with Dan suddenly became unbearable. I was persuaded to stay, but I explained my situation, and they understood. And a week later, I was to meet my sister at the airport. In the meantime, I made preparations, but there was no contact from Dan or his mother. See you at the airport tomorrow. Okay. Is your luggage all set? It's fine. I got rid of everything unnecessary while no one was at home. The next day, after filing the divorce papers, I flew overseas with my sister. I hadn't been abroad since I traveled there with my first husband. There was a mix of excitement and anxiety. My mother-in-law might have known, but Dan faced a huge consequence for his actions. The only regret was not being able to see his reaction when he realized it. This is our new home? From today? Impressive, isn't it? More than impressive. It's huge and fantastic. Now you can do whatever you want here. Thank you. Honestly, it was much more impressive than the high-rise Dan had leased. The thought of starting a new life in this house filled me with excitement. 3 days later, my phone rang. Hello? Susan, Dan. It was my mother-in-law. I didn't expect her to be the one to call. Calm down, please. Ever since you left, he's gone crazy. Gone crazy? He tried to cancel the lease on the condo and couldn't, and he hasn't come home since. Dem couldn't face reality and had run away, it seemed. But that was no longer my concern. That's unfortunate, but it has nothing to do with me. Please solve your own problems. She got angry at my response. This is all your fault, for hiding things. Take responsibility. I took a deep breath. Don't blame me. The one who went off the rails is at fault. Fault. You're the worst. The worst is on your side. Anyway, what happens to him is none of my business. I'm hanging up now. I ended the call. My sister spoke to me. Your ex-husband? No, it's about my mother-in-law. I bet it's nothing good, right? Yeah. She's troubled because they can't cancel the condo lease. What? That's all their own doing. I told her that, and she got mad. They're really stupid. We continued to laugh about it together. I never thought I'd have such a fun time talking about such things with someone. That day, my sister and I celebrated with drinks until the morning. Just when I thought it was time to sleep, I received a call on my smartphone. Again? What a hassle. Thinking it was my mother-in-law again, I checked the screen and saw it was my ex-husband, Dan. I hesitated but decided to answer, curious about his situation. What do you want? Where are you now? Why do you ask? I want to come see you. I don't have any business with you. Dan didn't know where I was. He couldn't imagine I was not in the US. I have something to discuss with you. Where are you? I can tell you, but you won't be able to come. Do you still want to know? What do you mean? Just tell me. I'm overseas right now living with my sister. You can't come here, can you? Dan was speechless when he realized I was abroad. By the way, you're troubled because you can't cancel the condo lease, right? Yeah, that's right. So, just so you know, I'm not gonna do something stupid like helping you. But, what? You're calling because you can't pay for it yourself, right? This is all your fault? Then sue me? Though that would be pointless. I provoked him further. Since it has come to this, I'll provoke him thoroughly and then hang up the phone. Don't mess with me. Who's to blame for this? Let me tell you, it's you. This is the result of your reckless actions. If only you had told me where the inheritance was. I didn't tell you because I knew this would happen. You and your mother are just greedy for money. That's not true. Then why did you desperately search the house? It's really sad. Anyway, since you signed the contract, you handle it. I'm hanging up. Wait. Just help me a little. No way. Seeing no point in continuing the conversation, I hung up. How disappointing can a man be? But I wondered how my ex-husband burdened with huge debts would survive. That was the only thing. That was the only thing I was curious about. Half a year passed since I came here with no further contact. I'm thinking of going back home. What about you? Yeah, I'm curious too. Let's go back. Then it's settled. We decided to temporarily return. I was curious about my ex-husband and his mother. I went to my old house, but Dan wasn't there. Going to his mother's house, I found it was now vacant land for sale. Well, that figures. Then someone called out to me from behind. A neighbor who knew my former mother-in-law approached me. They said they had moved out like a night flight a few weeks ago. Not surprising, really. I also visited a friend. It was a former colleague. Long time no see? How have you been? From this friend, I learned about my ex-husband's current situation. So that's what happened. Yeah, he quit the company after signing a lease for that expensive condo. Oh, really? But doing that only makes things more difficult. So where is he now? Now he's somewhere in the countryside. Sounds like them. I doubt they can lead a decent life. That's harsh. But we're divorced after all. Just as I thought they were struggling. But the hardest part was yet to come. I couldn't help but laugh. Now, I'll live freely with my sister. I probably won't marry again, but that's fine. I will enjoy my freedom. My name is Susan Johnson. I discovered my husband's affair in our 3rd year of marriage. I've never been pregnant. Yet his mistress is carrying his child. Kids need a father, he said as he thrust divorce papers at me. I thought he was a kind, caring husband. That was the moment everything crumbled. Then 10 days later, I got a message from my ex-husband Mike. We're married now. I didn't need such news. My exhausted heart was screaming. Then he sent a photo. Our baby will be born in 3 months. The photo showed a large belly. 7 months pregnant? Yeah, exactly. I couldn't have kids with you. But with her, it happened right away. Isn't that something? This meant they had been together for over 7 months. Telling me his ex-wife. What an insensitive person. You should move on too. It gets harder for women to find someone as they get older. His advice was the last thing I needed. Mike was kind in the beginning, always considering me first. He would buy things I wanted without me having to ask, and he planned surprises for birthdays, anniversaries, and Christmas. That stopped about 7 months ago. So you started dating her 7 months ago? Yeah, about that. Didn't expect her to get pregnant so soon. You weren't careful. No, we were being careful. But it happened anyway, which is pretty incredible. It's like God planned this to bring me and Beth together. Quite a God, huh? Yeah, I really believe that. Now I'm gonna be a dad. In 3 months, I'll be called Dad. Can you believe it? I've been waiting for this day. I'm so excited. I don't even know what to do with myself. I have no idea what to do with your messages. Do you think it's a girl or maybe a boy? Don't you know? Beth knows, but I want to wait until the baby is born. Knowing from the start just adds to the excitement of the surprise. It's more fun not knowing what's inside until you open it, right? I see. You wouldn't understand. This kind of excitement is something only a parent gets. Why are you even contacting me? I'm just sharing some of my happiness. Not appreciated. Why would I be happy for the man who left me now having a child with someone else? Maybe he deserves to go to hell. Am I wrong to think that? But why couldn't we have kids? Maybe you're infertile? What an awful thing to say. Beth is a great cook. This marriage is a huge success. Your cooking was terrible. I used to wonder how anyone could make such awful meals. Mike always seemed to enjoy my cooking. He ate like he couldn't get enough. Now he's calling it terrible. I can't tell what's true anymore. Also, when I come home from work, there are baby socks and other things she's made. She's incredibly skillful. Wow, that's impressive. Good for you. That's not all. She's so kind to me when I'm tired. How so? She says sorry to bother you, but could you rub my back? That sounds like she's just using me. It's okay because she says sorry to bother you. With you, it was like everything was expected. Since we both worked, you thought we should split the housework equally. That's where we differed. I truly think marrying you was a mistake, but marrying her was absolutely the right decision. Are you just contacting me to put me down? Not at all. Why are you so cynical? Just be more open. How can I be open? Ever since the day you announced the divorce, I've been in despair. To receive such happy messages from you now, I can't just be happy. Especially knowing it's because she's pregnant with your child. Why don't you understand that? You're just jealous of other people's happiness. That's why I wanted a divorce. If you weren't like that, I wouldn't have considered it. I'm actually a kind person. Would a kind person cheat? I doubt it. If she's so wonderful, she must be beautiful. Of course, right after that message, another photo was sent. When I saw it, I couldn't believe my eyes and burst out laughing. This is her? Yeah, that's Beth. She's cute, right? No way. That's great. What? That's rude. Laughing at my wife like that. She seems very virtuous. Oh, I see. Beth, right? What do you mean I see? What do you really know about her? I know everything. I know where her moles are, her habits. I know everything about her. You're missing the point. I'm not asking about moles or habits you would know from being intimate. What are you trying to say? Are you jealous? It's too late for that. We're already married. I'm not jealous. Maybe you just wanted someone who'd be jealous. That's why you cheated. Maybe, but you were just too cold. Say whatever you want. It just shows how much I trusted you. Now I understand why things turned out this way. So what do you understand? Never mind. What is it? I hope the baby looks like you. What do you mean by that? Just what I said. I don't get it. You must be jealous. Trying to ruin my happiness. You're such a terrible person. There's no way my child wouldn't look like me. Mike hurled insults at me, but while looking at that photo, I had revived my sunken spirits. 3 months later, I was amusing myself with the calendar, guessing the baby must have been born by now. I was excitedly anticipating a frantic call from Mike upon seeing the newborn. However, there was no contact from Mike. I bet he'll start making noise soon. About a month later, as expected, Mike contacted me. Hey, listen. The baby was born. Congratulations. Boy or girl? A girl. That's nice. Exciting times ahead. Yeah, but something's off. What's wrong? I already knew. But I asked anyway. The baby doesn't look like me. Oh really? What's with that reaction? Just saying. Hey, when I sent you that photo, you laughed. What did that mean? Are you sure you want to know? It might only bring regret. If you're happy now, isn't that enough? I was itching to tell him. I wanted to see his reaction, almost to send him to hell. But thinking this way, maybe I'm twisted after all. You know something, don't you? Yeah. I know something about Beth. You don't. What don't I know? Tell me. You might regret it. Just tell me. Okay, but remember you asked for it. Yeah, I can handle anything about Beth. So confident, huh? She was an acquaintance from my school days. Really? But I never met her when we were married. Of course not. She wasn't a friend, just an acquaintance. I see. If we had been closer, I would have known about your affair sooner. That makes sense. But to think she was your affair partner. We're married now. She's not just an affair partner. So is that all you know? Not at all. Then why did you laugh so much? She used to steal her friends' boyfriends. I made sure never to introduce her to you, but somehow you met. I laughed thinking she took you too. That's why you laughed? There's more. Stop beating around the bush. I thought you'd be shocked to hear she's a serial boyfriend stealer. If Beth is as charming as she seems, it's normal for guys to hit on her. She's the one doing the pursuing. But okay, I heard rumors about Beth from friends. It seems she's juggling 3 guys right now. Right now? As in currently? Yes, just 2 weeks ago heard she's still at it. No way. You don't even know if the baby is really yours. That's why I laughed when you sent the photo. But the timing fits. It's not strange if the baby was conceived when we started seeing each other. But she could have been seeing other men too. That's just speculation. You haven't seen anything. Of course I haven't seen them together. I wouldn't want to. Spreading rumors without seeing is a bad trait, not just for women, but for men too, right? Still, that's just speculation. Well, think what you want. That's it? There's more, but it's just rumors. I want to hear it. Well, rumor has it that Beth has debts. Debts? She's the type to spend a lot on herself, with regular visits to the nail salon and spa. Before she married you, she apparently funded this lifestyle through sugar daddy relationships. But it seems that doing that past 30 is tough. She's ended up in debt. But no one has seen that, right? Well, someone did see her coming out of a payday loan place counting money. So it's probably not a lie that she's borrowed money. How much? I don't know. It's just a rumor after all. Is that it? No, there's more. Rumor 3. There's more? She had a child during college. She told me herself, so it's likely true. I've never heard such a thing. That child is being raised as her sister by her parents. If she was in college, the child must be 14 or 15 now. That would be about right. Yeah, I've seen her at Beth's parents. But she always called her big sister. Classic Beth? She's that kind of person. So there might be more hidden children. No, that can't be. I've never heard anything like that. People must be jealous of Beth's beauty, making up such stories. Mike was in complete denial, insisting it was all just rumors. If you want to believe that, it's fine. They're probably just rumors. Just that. Yeah, of course. If that's the kind of person you like, that's fine. It's your life, do what you want. What happens to you is none of my business. Don't say careless things, especially about Beth, or I won't stand for it. Don't worry, not many are eager to get close to her. I ended the call, hoping that at least one thing I said would stick in Mike's memory. I doubted anything would push him to hell given how smitten he was. So I thought that was all the revenge I could get. Pity. But a year later, Mike contacted me again. It's been a while. His voice sounded utterly exhausted. Wow, long time no see. You sound tired? Aren't you at the peak of happiness with your growing child? That's just it. The baby's almost 1 and doesn't resemble me at all. There should be some resemblance, but I can't find any. Oh, really? Also, like you said, there have been debt collection letters from payday loans. I think she's borrowed. Did you look inside? No, it's addressed to her. You should look. You're married after all. I'm scared to. Not looking might make things worse. I just don't want to know how much she's borrowed. Didn't you say it was all rumors a year ago? Just look, might just be an advertisement. If you live normally, you don't get letters from payday loan places. I don't get them. True, I've never seen one either. Then she must have borrowed. Don't yell at me. It's annoying. Sorry, I just can't talk to anyone else. It's not just me. Sorry. But what if it's something irreversible? You didn't borrow it. Why worry so much? But we're married. Then you should look. That's the only way to deal with it. Yeah, I guess. You're right. Mike repeated to himself that it was the only option before hanging up. But within 2 hours he called again. Look, I'm not idle. It's been a year since we split. You're a stranger to me now. I don't need to listen to your complaints anymore. It's annoying you keep contacting me. Don't say that. We're supposed to help each other out in tough times, right? That's rich coming from you. After you dragged me through the mud. Just listen to me, please. What now? It's about the payday loans. When I looked into it, it wasn't just from reputable lenders. She's borrowed from some really shady places like loan sharks. Oh, she really did it this time. And she made me the co-signer without my knowledge. That sounds like something Beth would do. And just now my mother-in-law came by and dumped 3 kids on me. 3? I knew she had 3 younger sisters, including a 15-year-old. I was told they were all Beth's siblings. Oh, the child she had in college. Yeah, and there were 2 more. Wow, she's been busy. So, my mother-in-law is sick and can't move around much anymore. She asked me to take in the kids. Just take them in. They're Beth's kids. She'd probably be happy about that. Beth just laughs and says, they're all mine. Even if they were my kids, with the debt issue, I have no idea how to support them. Why don't you tell that to Beth? I did. Asked her how we're supposed to live, where the money will come from. She just said I should earn more. Wow, but you used to say, back when we were married, that Beth was good at cooking and knitting baby socks. Someone like that should be able to take care of kids, right? That was all a lie. She bought ready-made meals and just put them on plates. The baby socks were store-bought, just taken out of the bag to impress me. Ah, you got played. That's Beth for you. I just don't know what to do anymore. You have to solve things one at a time. Pay off the loan sharks first, then the payday loans. You might have to work extra jobs, work hard. The oldest is 15, right? She can start working soon, help out. See, things are looking up. Don't make it sound so easy. It's like it's none of your business. But it is none of my business, isn't it? Come on, help me out here. Think seriously about this. I am being serious. But you're a stranger to me. To me, what can I possibly do? You could lend me money or come up with ideas like that. Why should I lend you money? And if I did, the interest rate would be 1 to 1. Still want it? What kind of loan shark are you? Ants. Stop it, please. I ended the call after teasing the miserable Mike. Seeing him go through all this did bring me some satisfaction. And now loan sharks too. I couldn't help thinking, Beth, you've really done it. There can't possibly be more than this. Anything else would be too much, even for him. Then one day Mike's company went bankrupt. He worked at a small factory, and I knew it would be over if the main contractor went under. But he never thought something like that would actually happen. Then when it did, Beth apparently screamed at Mike every day to do something about it. I was just waiting for you to call and complain. When Mike called me, the first thing I said was just that. That's exactly it. When the main contractor went under, there was nothing I could do. Poor boss trying so hard. Poor me too. I couldn't care less about you. Thanks to that, I'm being attacked every day. Ah, your beloved Beth. Now I don't even know where the love is anymore. You chose her. Leave your wife for her. That hurts. You had it coming. I'm trying to find another job, but it's tough. Sounds like you're getting an earful. Yeah, exactly. According to Mike, it went something like this. The company is going bankrupt. That's just unbelievable. Why were you even working at such a small factory? If it's small enough to collapse when the main contractor goes under, you should have switched jobs sooner. Don't you understand you have a family to support? I know, but the bankruptcy was out of my control. Not being able to eat was without an excuse. With 4 kids, how do you plan to feed them? I know, we'll use our savings for a while. Like we have any. I thought we had been saving. I need money to maintain my beauty. And what about the loan shark payments? What are you gonna do about that? That's Beth's. What about me? It's all because I tried to stay beautiful for you. It's only natural you should deal with it. After all, I married you. That's hard to respond to. Stop sipping your tea and go find a job, you useless husband. That's too much. Shut up. If you don't find a job, there's no food for you until you do. That's how it seemed to go. Incredible. Complete strangers. The top 3 don't even warm up to me. I couldn't take it anymore and asked if they were really my kids. She said she didn't know because she was juggling 3 men at that time. So the rumors were true. When I said they didn't look like me, she told me, if I think they're mine, they'll start to resemble me eventually. Classic Beth. During one of his many complaint calls, contact suddenly stopped. I thought he had found a job, but then he showed up at my door. Help me, I'm done for. He was a shadow of his former self, utterly exhausted and his eyes clouded over. In his dazed state, where it was unclear even what he was looking at, I asked him, "Are you okay?" "It's no good," he replied. I was so miserable, I found myself wanting to sink into the river. "That's terrible," I said. "I went to the doctor, and they said I have depression." "Did you tell your wife?" I asked. She said depression is something you cure with willpower. "Wow," I replied, I don't want to go back to Beth's place. Please help me. Marry me again." "Why should I remarry you?" I asked. "Don't be silly. I'm in trouble. I don't want to work. Did you find a job?" "No," he replied. "Well, you should find one first." "Don't say that," I said. "Just help me." While we were talking, Beth contacted my phone. The message was, "My husband ran away from home. I know you're in touch with him. Help me bring him back." "Here's a message from your wife," I said. After seeing Beth's message, Mike screamed and ran out the door. Later, I heard from mutual friends that Beth found him and brought him back home. Thinking he was at the end of his rope, Mike filed for divorce. "What's this?" I asked. "Please, I can't take it anymore. Let's divorce." "What?" I replied. "What about the kids?" "Those kids are yours," he said. "Too bad. The youngest is your child, and I've legally adopted the other 3 with you. So they are your kids. Divorcing me means taking care of all 4 by yourself?" "When did this happen?" I asked. "I've made sure you can't escape. Stop thinking nonsense and find a job." "I found a part-time job, but..." "A part-time job?" I asked. "You think a family of 6 can live on that?" "Get a real job, you useless man," I said. Chased by Beth, jobless Mike is struggling, working part-time jobs and hardly sleeping. As for Beth, she continues to spend money on herself, not reducing the debt at all. As for me, since divorcing Mike, I've been hesitant to remarry, but I recently met someone and we hit it off. I'm enjoying this new relationship, imagining a bright future. Childcare is a wife's job, isn't it? Not just childcare, but housework and taking care of the husband. It's all the wife's job. My husband, Michael, yelled at me with a contorted face. His words filled my heart with frustration and sadness. Unable to sort out my emotions, I stood there dumbfounded when I suddenly heard crying. Startled by Michael's loud voice, our twins had started crying at the same time. I hurried to soothe them, but Michael, annoyed by their crying, cursed and quickly left the house. Where did the kind husband I used to know go? When was the last time I saw him smile gently the way I loved? He changed after we got married. He treats me like a housekeeper and behaves unreasonably. Even now, with our children born, his arrogant attitude remains the same. Moreover, he pushes all the childcare onto me, demanding I handle the housework and his personal care as well. I had hoped that he might return to his kinder self after our children were born, but that hope was quickly shattered. How many times have I hoped and been disappointed by Michael? A sense of emptiness wells up inside me. Still, being on parental leave, I have no choice but to rely on him financially, so I grit my teeth and endure his unreasonable demands. Time passed, and one day when he came home from work, he said, "You know, I got laid off." So you're gonna have to support me now. He said it with a smirk, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. To that I firmly replied, isn't it a husband's job to earn? I have no use for a husband who can't fulfill his duties. Get out. My name is Jennifer. I joined my current company right out of college, and before I knew it, I was almost 30. While my friends from school were getting married and finding happiness, I had been focused solely on my career and hadn't had any significant relationships. Feeling a bit anxious about this, I finally found a boyfriend. His name was Michael. Michael was a colleague who transferred to my department, and we hit it off at a company social event, leading to us dating. He was 2 years younger than me, but I really liked his calm and generous nature. After a few years of dating at work, we got married when I was 32. I thought I would have a happy married life with the gentle Michael, but his true colors showed soon after our marriage. Michael started treating me like a housekeeper from the first day we lived together. Hey, what about dinner? I'm starving here. While I was busy unpacking from our move, Michael yelled from behind, shocked by his rough tone and words which I had never heard before. Hey, are you listening? Get dinner ready now? Hey, yelled it again. I turned to Michael with a forced smile. Sorry, I haven't finished setting up the kitchen yet. Should I go buy something from the store? Or maybe we can order delivery. Before I could finish, Michael clicked his tongue in irritation and walked towards the door. When I hurried after him, Michael glared at me and spat out. I'll eat out. Then maybe I should come too? I said that and hurried to get ready, but Michael abruptly shut me down with a chill. Don't come with me. I froze, my body trembling as Michael continued in an irritated tone. Make sure you finish cleaning up before I get back. Can't relax in such a cluttered room. With that, he closed the door and left to eat alone. I stood there stunned, rooted to the spot. Was that really Michael just now? I found myself muttering. The Michael I just saw was nothing like the always gentle and calm Michael I knew, filling me with anxiety. Maybe he was just really hungry. I held a faint hope that he might return to his usual self after eating out. But days passed, and the kind Michael never returned. However, at work, where others could see him, he behaved as gently as before. The drastic difference between Michael at work and at home made me wonder if he had a split personality. So my life, far from the happy newlywed life I had imagined, continued, and about 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. Moreover, it wasn't just one baby, but twins. The realization that I was carrying twins filled my heart with joy. Even after finding out about the pregnancy, Michael's unreasonable behavior towards me at home didn't change, but I hoped that he would return to his kinder self once the children were born. Time passed, my belly grew significantly, and I took maternity and parental leave from work. And then I successfully gave birth to twins. I was truly happy to have given birth to twins, but the task of caring for them was several times harder than I had imagined. Despite being prepared, the first-time parenting experience meant I spent every day incredibly busy. However, Michael didn't help at all. Instead, he tried to make me do all the housework and even take care of his personal needs, as before the birth. Unable to take it anymore, I finally spoke up to Michael. Hey Michael, you can see I'm swamped with taking care of these kids. I can't possibly do everything. Can't you at least change a diaper or something? At my words, Michael's face turned red with anger as he yelled at me. Why should I have to do that? I'm the husband. A husband's job is to earn money outside. So childcare is a wife's job, right? Not just childcare, but housework. And taking care of the husband, it's all the wife's job. Michael's words left my heart a mess of frustration and sadness. As I stood there, dazed and unable to sort out my emotions, I was jolted back to reality by a crying sound. Perhaps, startled by Michael's loud voice, the twins started crying simultaneously. I rushed to soothe them, but Michael spat out, "Shut up! I can't stand this house," and fled outside. This behavior shattered any hope I had that he might become the kind man he was before once the children were born. How many times have I been hopeful and then disappointed by Michael? A sense of emptiness surged within me. Yet during my maternity leave, I had no choice but to rely on Michael financially, so I gritted my teeth and endured it. I somehow managed to handle the twins' childcare, the bare minimum housework, and Michael's personal care. Since my parents live far away, they couldn't often come to help. I spent every night soothing the twins who cried at the same time, resulting in constant sleep deprivation. Amid these challenging days, I eventually became ill and had to be hospitalized. However, Michael, claiming he was busy with work, didn't even visit me. When my parents found out that I had collapsed, they immediately came to help and stayed at my house for about a week. They took care of me while I was in the hospital and also looked after the twins, who were steadily growing. Their support allowed me to focus on getting better. Meanwhile, Michael didn't visit me in the hospital, nor did he return home. My parents and I tried to contact him several times to no avail. He was purposely ignoring our calls, although we confirmed he was regularly going to work. "What a terrible man," I muttered to myself on the hospital bed. At that moment, I completely gave up on relying on Michael for anything. Once I recovered and was discharged, I returned home and my parents went back to theirs. A few days later, Michael casually returned home without any apology or words of concern for me. However, I no longer felt upset or angry with him. My feelings for Michael had completely cooled off. This hospitalization taught me the importance of relying on others. My parents scolded and cried over me, saying, "Why did you keep silent until you broke down? Why don't you ask for help? It doesn't matter that we live far away. If you just said you needed help when I called, we would have come no matter where we lived." Raising children is tough, especially two. Use whatever help you can get. We understand you don't want to trouble us, but you ended up harming yourself and being unable to care for your children. Of course, Michael is the main problem, but by staying silent and not asking for help, you only made things worse for yourself and your children. You have no choice but to handle everything yourself, which is also an issue. Hearing my parents' tearful and trembling voices, I realized I had chosen to silently comply with Michael's way of life. From then on, I learned to seek help from those around me, not just my parents. I started utilizing community childcare support services to find time for myself and joined a community of parents raising twins. Just knowing I wasn't alone brought me a sense of mental relief. Surprisingly, Michael, who had once seemed so terrifying, no longer scared me. He was just a coward. Perhaps he was accumulating too much stress at work, and he made me his outlet. He probably felt superior because he was financially supporting me, who was overwhelmed with taking care of the kids. His not harming the children wasn't due to any ethical sense. He just knew the disadvantages he would face if something happened to them, having seen tragic incidents on TV. Strangely, Michael and I had been getting along for over half a year. I took care of the housework and childcare because that's supposedly a wife's job, and Michael earned the money, as that's a husband's duty. There was no love between us, and he did nothing fatherly, but he did provide a stable environment with food, clothing, and shelter. Amidst this life, the twins grew up well and turned 1. When they finally started daycare, I cried tears of relief the first time I left them there. Even though it was only for an hour during the adjustment period, it felt liberating to have some time to myself. Once the kids completed the adjustment period and started full-day daycare, I promptly returned to work. I had planned to return to work coinciding with their daycare's start, but I had to take it as days off during the adjustment period. Working again, I found myself genuinely smiling. The twins are adorable, but conversing with adults who can speak properly was calming. Whether it was with colleagues or my boss, and even if the discussions were about work, I felt fulfilled every day. I was determined to work hard and save up money. Just when I was thinking this, Michael came home from work and blurted out, "I got laid off. So now, you gotta support me." I had heard rumors about staff reductions happening soon at his company, and it seemed Michael was one of those let go. He was never great at his job, making careless mistakes, and even once shredding important documents. He probably got by for a while due to his good nature at work, but it looks like they finally gave up on him. "It's good timing since you're returning to work now. From now on, you can support me," he said with a smirk. I let out a huge sigh at Michael's command and firmly told him, "What are you even saying? Support? You don't be ridiculous. You didn't help at all with childcare when it was most difficult and made me do all the housework and personal care. And now you have the audacity to say that? It was the first time I had raised my voice so much, and Michael seemed quite shocked. He stood with his mouth half open and eyes wide. But then he snapped back to reality and yelled, "You! What kind of way is that to talk to your husband?" Unintimidated by Michael's yelling, I continued, You said childcare is a wife's job, right? So, earning money is the husband's job, isn't it? I have no use for a husband who can't fulfill his duties. Get out. Huh? Get out? Calm down a bit. Michael stammered, unable to hide his confusion. I'm saying we should get divorced. I'm better off without a husband like you. Please leave quickly, I said coldly, and Michael's face turned pale. Are you serious? Of course I am. After all you've done, why wouldn't I want a divorce? Michael stammered, and because, over and over, we had been living like this since the beginning of our marriage. He thought I wanted this life because I hadn't mentioned divorce before. That's ridiculous. I only didn't say anything because my savings alone wouldn't have been enough to raise the kids until I could return to work. When I was hospitalized, I had been preparing to divorce you. Despite feeling boiling anger inside, the words that came out were shockingly cold. Realizing my determination, Michael glared at me and spat out his last words in defiance. Fine, I'll leave. I've had enough of a useless wife like you. And with that, Michael stomped towards the front door. On his way out, Michael kept muttering to himself in a loud voice, saying things like, "If you're gonna apologize, now's the time. Going back to work with twins will just cause trouble at the workplace, and you can't live without me." Without responding to any of it, I just followed him to the door and turned around. "This is your last chance. You got something to say to me, right?" he asked, his face red with anger yet sweating profusely, a bizarre expression. I just smiled at him and said, "Don't worry about the divorce papers, I'll file them." Hearing this, Michael's face contorted with a big sigh, and he angrily clicked his tongue. As he reached for the door, he glared back at me and yelled, "Don't you dare regret this," before storming out. The moment he left, I quickly locked the door and put on the chain. I let out a sigh of relief, followed by a dry laugh. There's no way I would regret this. I immediately went to Michael's bedroom, opened the wardrobe, and took out the divorce papers. I knew that he had hidden a pre-filled divorce form in the back of his wardrobe since right after the twins were born. He had threatened to divorce me if I couldn't handle the housework and childcare. I quickly filled in my part and went to the office with the twins to submit the divorce papers. After returning home, I called a locksmith to change the locks on the front door to ensure Michael couldn't enter. I sent a brief message to Michael, informing him about the filing of the divorce papers and the changing of the locks. Soon after, I returned to work full-time. The twins were doing well, happily crying, laughing, eating, and enjoying their time at daycare. I cherished the peaceful days that followed. Then about 6 months after the divorce, something intriguing happened at work. One of my subordinates, Lily, a very popular and beautiful young employee among the male staff, started making odd remarks to me. "Jennifer, Michael is really not a morning person, right? He hardly ever wakes up, and it troubles me every day." "What?" "You know, I love cooking, so I make a lot of breakfast, but he's such a sleepyhead that it often gets cold before he eats." She bragged about this with a smug grin. But when I tried to inquire more, Lily quickly said, "Oh, what am I saying? Please forget what I just said," and refused to speak any further. From her comments, I was convinced that Michael was now living at Lily's place. After being kicked out by me, Michael had tried to go back to his parents, but it seems his in-laws disowned him, saying that a husband abandoned by his wife and children is a disgrace. I had little contact with my in-laws, who lived quite far away and were rather old-fashioned and difficult people. Recently, I received a call from my father-in-law, apologizing and informing me about their disowning of Michael. "Jennifer, it's been a while," I heard from Michael. "I'm really sorry about our son. We've disowned him. We regret not being able to help you before." And then, I even received words of support saying that I could ask for help with anything if I ever faced any trouble. This is probably how Michael, having been kicked out of his parents' home and with nowhere else to go, ended up moving into Lily's house. Lily began to repeatedly tell me things like, "I'm the only one who really understands Michael, and I'm glad that nuisance is finally out of the way." From her statements, I was convinced that the two of them had been having an affair since Michael and I were married. I gathered evidence through other employees' testimonies and hired a private investigator. As a result, I managed to collect definitive proof of their affair during our marriage. Lily had been openly talking to colleagues about her relationship with Michael, and had boasted by sending several photos of them looking intimate, some clearly taken in the past. Hotel, making it relatively easy to gather evidence of their affair. Armed with this conclusive evidence, I consulted a lawyer and sued both Michael and Lily for damages. Michael yelled, "Why now?" To which I replied, "It's all because of Lily." When Lily confronted me, screaming in a high-pitched voice, I just smiled sweetly and said, "Thanks for confessing that you've been having an affair with Michael all along. Honestly, I had no idea he was cheating. But thanks to you, I was able to gather evidence and sue both of you for damages." Lily twisted her once beautiful face into something monstrous as she yelled at me. However, it was her fault for trying to assert dominance over me for a moment of superiority. She could have stayed silent, and nothing would have been revealed. I responded with the biggest smile I've had recently, reminding her to quickly pay the alimony. A few days after the alimony demand, Michael called me. "Jennifer, it's been a while." His voice lacked the fierceness it once had, sounding weak and defeated. "If you have something to say, please go through my lawyer. I'm hanging up now." As I firmly stated this, Michael began to sound desperate. "Wait, look, I can't pay the alimony. I haven't found a new job yet. I was being supported by Lily." "Your circumstances are none of my concern. Please pay the alimony," I said dismissively, and I could hear Michael sniffling over the phone. "Don't be so cold. Lily broke up with me, but I didn't know she was so heartless." Apparently, Michael had tried to raise money for my alimony by selling Lily's cherished designer bags and clothes without her knowledge, which led to Lily finding out and promptly dumping him. I got kicked out of Lily's place, and now I'm just staying in a motel. My savings are almost gone. I can hardly afford food. I don't care. Just make sure to pay the alimony." "What's with that attitude? Your ex-husband is suffering here. Can't you show a little compassion?" Michael's voice was filled with tears, desperately appealing to me. I sighed deeply and replied, "I had many difficult times too, but you never helped me. Why do you think you deserve help now? Goodbye." And with that, I unhesitatingly ended the call. I think I heard Michael scream as I hung up, but I felt no pity for him. Meanwhile, Lily also approached me at work, crying, "Jennifer, please cancel the alimony claim. I've been supporting Michael all this time. I don't have any money." She tried to cry her way out of it after her anger and stubbornness failed to sway me. Her overly dramatic crying didn't elicit the slightest bit of sympathy from me. "That's not my problem. Besides, this is a workplace. Aren't you ashamed to expose your disgrace like this?" Lily's loud wails drew the attention of not only our department, but also employees from other departments. She probably wanted to isolate me as the heartless woman who wouldn't respond to her tears, but it was clear from the looks of my colleagues that nobody sided with Lily. The situation escalated to the point where our manager had to step in, and Lily, who was acting like a madwoman, was told to stay home for a few days. Although I hadn't spread the news about Lily and Michael throughout the company, her shouting made the whole story public. Afterward, it was discovered that Lily had also been involved with another married man. As a result, she was transferred to a department known for being tough. This transfer effectively meant a demotion for her as her salary was reduced. The department she was moved to is full of strong-willed and strict part-time ladies. Naturally, these ladies in her new department were aware of Lily's affair and the alimony demands against her, so they were very cold towards her, and often made sarcastic comments. Lily, crying every day, kept saying she wanted to quit. But she couldn't resign due to her debts and the alimony she owed me, leading her to endure tough days. When I recently passed by Lily at the office, she had lost all her former glamour, wearing a somber and gloomy air. Our eyes met briefly, but she, apparently too exhausted to appeal to me anymore, awkwardly looked away without saying a word. As for Michael, he managed to find a cheap, run-down apartment but was struggling with his job search. His inability to take care of himself left him looking disheveled, and he was rejected from all full-time job applications. He resorted to working long hours in day labor jobs, suffering from lack of sleep and loneliness. Still, he was trying his best to pay the alimony, as indicated in his voicemail messages. Michael regularly left updates about his life on my answering machine, always ending his messages the same way. "Hey Jennifer, I feel like I'm gonna collapse living like this. Continuing to pay the alimony is just too hard, there's no hope for the future." His attempt to gain my sympathy, likely hoping I'd reduce the alimony, was transparent, so I'm considering blocking his calls. After my divorce from Michael, I thought I was done with marriage, but then I had a wonderful encounter. I met a single father in a community for parents raising twins. Coincidentally, we lived close to each other and began to help each other out. He had also been cheated on by his ex-wife and had gone through a period of distrust in people, becoming quite withdrawn. However, he cherished his children and said they were the reason he managed to pull through. We had many things in common and shared our struggles, which naturally brought us closer. Our children got along well too, so we decided to get remarried. Now we're a lively family of 6, enjoying our days together.